This happened back in 2019. I was just 19 years old at the time. I used to take the subway to work every day when I worked in New York. Driving was out of the question with all the traffic and parking problems, so the subway made more sense. My commute wasn't too bad. It took me about 20 minutes with 2 different trains to get to my job. I'd get off the subway, walk a few blocks, and I'd be there. One morning, like usual, I got on the subway with a bunch of other people. It was really crowded, as it often is. I usually just kept to myself, listening to music or something to pass the time. When I switched trains, a few other people did the same. One man caught my eye. He was wearing a big black jacket, and I noticed him because he had gotten on the first train at the same stop near my apartment. I didn't think much of it at first. He got off at my stop and walked behind me the whole way to my work. I thought it was just a coincidence. When I reached my office, he kept walking down the street, so I forgot about him and went on with my day. Later, when the workday ended, I walked back to the subway station to go home. That's when I saw the man again, wearing the same jacket, waiting for the subway. I didn't recognize him from before that day, but I figured he must just work in the same area. When the subway arrived, I got on, and to my surprise, the man followed me and sat right next to me. That's when I started to feel uneasy. I couldn't explain why, but something about him just didn't sit right with me. At the next stop, instead of getting off and switching to my usual train to go home, I decided to walk around for a bit to see if he was actually following me. Sure enough, wherever I went, he followed. I was starting to get nervous, but I wasn't sure what to do. Eventually, I went back to the subway station and we both waited for the next train. He kept a bit of distance, sitting on a bench about 20 feet away, but I could tell he was watching me. When the train arrived, I didn't want to get on because I knew he'd follow me, and I didn't want him to know where I lived. I sat there, letting the train doors stay open until I had an idea. Just as the doors were about to close, I quickly jumped up and got on the train. I watched the man start to stand, but the doors closed before he could get on. That night, I made it home safely, but I was pretty shaken up. After that, I decided to take a break from the subway for a while. To this day, I still wonder what that guy wanted. I used to live in a city with a subway system, and I took the subway to work every day for almost a year. I don't live in that city or have the same job anymore, but I still remember something strange that happened back then. Because of my job, my schedule was all over the place. Sometimes I worked early in the morning, sometimes in the middle of the day, and sometimes late at night. Since I was on the subway at different times, I'd see a variety of people, but there was one guy I started noticing a few months in. At first, it didn't seem weird, but I realized after a while that no matter when I rode the subway, morning, day, or night, he was always there, sitting in the same area. He wore a coat or jacket and a hat, had glasses, and had a slight beard. I never saw him miss a day, and it started to feel like he just rode the subway all the time. It was odd because he didn't work with me, and he was the only person I saw so often. I had almost a week off from work, which was a nice break. On my 4th or 5th night off, around 11 p.m., I was in bed watching TV and messing around on my phone. Suddenly, I thought I heard the doorknob to my front door turning, like someone was trying to come in. I lived alone, and my apartment wasn't very big. The front door opened directly to the outside, so I stayed in bed and listened, but after a minute or two, I didn't hear anything else. I got up to check the door, but no one was there. I went back to my room, thinking maybe a neighbor had accidentally tried the wrong door. It's something I'd done before myself. But then, I heard a scratching noise at my bedroom window. My heart jumped. The window was only about 5 feet away from my bed, so I got up quickly and walked over to it. When I lifted the blinds, I couldn't believe it. The guy from the subway was right there, staring at me. As soon as he saw me, he looked away and tried to cover his face, but I knew it was him. I only saw him for a split second, but it was enough to recognize him. He didn't live in my building, and I had no idea why he was there. I opened the window just a crack and asked him what he was doing, but he didn't answer. Instead, he took off down the street, got into a car, and drove away. I never saw that guy on the subway again after that night, and I'm really glad I didn't. Looking back, it creeps me out to think he might have been using the subway just to follow me. I'm a 28-year-old blonde woman, but people often think I look younger, like 18 to 22. A while back, I went back to college to study human resources. One Monday, around 1 p.m., I was on the train heading to a 3 p.m. class. The train I took runs from outside the city and is usually pretty empty during the day when it's not rush hour. When I got on, I went upstairs, but decided to sit in the middle area near the bathroom because someone was humming upstairs and it was annoying. The bathroom door was closed and I didn't think anyone was in there. I was the only one in that part of the train, sitting with my jacket off, sipping tea from a bunny mug and my backpack across from me. It felt peaceful, as the GO train is usually a calm ride. After sitting there for about 5 minutes, a man suddenly popped out of the bathroom. He looked around 22 and had a noticeable white scar on his face, shaped like a heart in a 3-dimensional cube. He walked over and put his hands on my backpack. At first I thought he was trying to mug me, and I mentally prepared myself to punch him and run, but then he said something that made my body freeze. His first words were, "I'm going to kill my father tonight, and you're going to help me." I work in mental health, so I'm used to hearing people talk about violent thoughts. Normally, I'm not easily scared by that kind of talk because I know how to handle it. But this felt different. This guy wasn't asking for help. He wasn't just having a bad day. He was serious, and I knew I needed to get away. He blocked my exit with his leg, and my voice was shaking as I tried to stay calm. "It sounds like you're going through a lot. I'm sorry you're upset with your dad. Do you want to talk about it?" I grabbed my backpack, feeling terrified inside because I knew this wasn't good. He got closer and said, "No, you don't. You're not sorry. Women like you sleep with my dad." His words were filled with hate, and he kept cornering me. He then told me he was going to make me help him kill his dad with a knife because he was tired of women like me always ignoring him but sleeping with his father. At that point, I was terrified. My body was frozen, and I was scared he was going to drag me into the bathroom. His face was inches from mine, and I did the only thing I could think of. I screamed. I yelled, over and over, so loud I barely recognized my own voice. 4 people came running, 1 man, 2 young women, and an older woman. The man asked if I was okay, and the guy across from me started yelling, saying I was calling for help because I was vain and cruel. He was ranting about how women only want pretty guys, and motioned to the scars on his face. It was scary. The man who came to help told me to run to the customer service area, and he promised to keep the guy from following me. Before I left, we pressed the yellow security strip, and the train started beeping, but no security showed up. I ran, and thankfully the man didn't follow me. The guy who helped me later found me and told me that the creepy guy just casually strolled off the train when it stopped, like nothing had happened. The 2 young women who had come to help had taken pictures of the guy as he left, and they gave them to the police. When the police arrived, I told them what happened. They said they knew who he was because of the scars on his face, and apparently he had done something similar the day before. They mentioned that he had slapped another woman on the train and someone had seen him with a knife earlier. The police didn't seem too interested, though. They asked if I saw a knife, and I said no, but the way he spoke made me feel like he had one. It turned out that someone had called the cops before we even pressed the emergency strip, but the train staff didn't know about it. After talking to the police, I left, but it still bothers me that he's out there somewhere. A few days later, I saw a young woman, maybe 18 or 20, crying at the train station. She was telling someone that she had hidden in the bathroom the whole ride because a man scared her when she got on the train. I don't know if it was the same guy, but it felt like it could have been. It bothers me to think he's still out there, especially scaring young girls who might be too afraid to scream for help like I did. It's been months now, and the police have never contacted me to say if they caught him. He didn't actually touch me, so maybe they didn't think it was serious enough, but it's left me feeling permanently anxious on my commute. I don't sit alone anymore, and I always keep my jacket on.